guys, it's me Pri. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be talking about this topic today. It's something I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time. I just wasn't ready to put the pictures out there yet, but at the end of the video, I'm going to include all the pictures from my very own Accutane experience. So let's just start right at the beginning. So first things first, what is Accutane? Accutane is a prescription drug that you can get for acne. It's essentially a form of vitamin A. I'm not going to get into the details because frankly, I don't know the details, but all I know that it is some kind of derivative of vitamin A. It's not just effective for acne, but sometimes it is prescribed for other skin conditions too. As I think I've already mentioned 1,000 times, this is a prescription drug, which means that a physician has to actually prescribe it to you. It's not something that you can access over the counter. Okay, so now that I've made it clear kind of what Accutane even is, let's get into a little more about how I actually got a prescription for Accutane, and technically how you can too. So I went to my general practitioner, my family doctor, who referred me to a dermatologist. And it was the dermatologist who really sat me down and looked at my condition and assessed me and made the decision to prescribe Accutane to me for my specific needs. So before you even get to take any Accutane, there's going to be a series of things that you're going to be required to do. One of the things is that the dermatologist is going to ask you loads of invasive health questions. Now this is super necessary. Be sure to be honest about all your answers because this is an extremely powerful prescription drug and you want to make sure that it's right for you. It's not going to endanger your health in any way. So it is important that they ask you those questions and get to know your health history, your mental health history, your lifestyle. All those kinds of things are really important when you're taking a drug like this. You may probably have to have blood work done. I know I did. And then after that, if you're a woman who is of a childbearing age, you're going to be requested to take some form of birth control 1 month prior to starting Accutane and continue taking it 1 month after you're done taking Accutane. So in my case, I was required to do this because I was 20 at the time. So following that, they're going to give you this extremely terrifying little book which basically outlines every possible thing that could go wrong, every possible side effect and terrible thing that could happen to you while you take Accutane. Now it lists all the kinds of side effects that you could have. I am going to detail in a bit about the side effects that I experienced, and trust me, it was not nearly as lengthy as the list they gave me in that book. You have to read the little booklet and then you have to sign a release form saying that you understand the risks and that you still want to take Accutane. So finally, you're going to need to get weighed, and it's your weight that determines your dosage, and that's actually not the dosage that you take in the pill form each day. It's the total amount that you take over the span of taking Accutane. So that being said, the length of time it's going to take you to finish the course of Accutane that's been set for you is going to vary, and it's going to depend on how your dermatologist kind of spaces that out for you, if that makes sense. So in my case, I couldn't tell you what my final dosage was, but basically I was on Accutane for less than 4 months. And now that I've watched a lot of other experienced videos, I've noticed a lot of people have been on for 4 to 6 months. For whatever reason, I was only on less than 4 months. I started at a super low dosage of 10 milligrams. I believe that's the lowest you can take. And after I took 10 milligrams for about maybe 2 weeks, I went back to the clinic. I was thoroughly checked to see how I was reacting to it. I was asked about the symptoms I was experiencing, which at that time were none. My liver was checked, my blood was checked, and then my dosage was increased to 20 milligrams. So over the span of almost 4 months, my dosage was increased from 10 milligrams to 20, then 30, then 40, and then finally 50. So 50 milligrams was the highest dosage that I took. So as I mentioned, at the 10 milligram mark, I really didn't experience any side effects at all. Even at the 20 milligram mark, really nothing was going on. I noticed that things were starting to calm down. I had very active and inflamed skin, and even at the 20 milligram point, I noticed that it was starting to come down a little bit. I've heard a lot of people say that they experience a flare-up in about the 2nd month of their Accutane, but I actually didn't experience this at all, and I wonder if it was because my dosages were so gradual. So because I was increasing by 10 milligrams each time every couple weeks, I almost wonder if that's why I didn't have any flare-up. I really couldn't tell you, but I honestly didn't, and I'm so glad for that because things were bad bad enough for me as it was. So 10 milligrams, everything was fine. 20, everything was looking good, looked like things were going according to plan. When I hit 30 and 40 milligrams, that's when I really started experiencing side effects. So what I was mostly having was dryness, and I've heard this so much. I think this is the most common side effect that people experience. I was, and you'll see in the pictures at the end, literally just flaking. My skin was flaking, especially around my mouth and all the areas where my skin was very active at that time. So much flaking, just so much. It was so bad. And it actually wasn't just on my face. I noticed that my hands were getting kind of flaky. All my skin, all my body, like all my skin was dry all the time. I also really noticed that I had very dry eyes. I have dry eyes normally. I have laser now, but back then I used to wear contacts, and I remember contacts being so uncomfortable, even more than they normally were, which was terrible. I had those little lubricating eye drops in my bag all the time because I insisted on wearing contacts a lot. Another thing I noticed was that even my hair became very dry. As I got onto the higher doses of 30, 40, and 50 milligrams, I noticed that my hair fall was a lot more. So in the shower when I washed my hair, it was coming out more than it ever had before. That was kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie, that was terrifying, but I guarantee you it stopped after I stopped taking Accutane. It was totally temporary. It didn't continue. I didn't suffer any kind of patchiness or baldness or anything like that. So it was very temporary, but it can definitely be scary. I think one of the biggest things I noticed, other than just the utterly dry skin, oh, and dry lips too. My lips were so dry that they were like inflamed. One of the other really big things I noticed was that my skin felt so sensitive. So when I would wash it or apply moisturizer, I had to be really gentle because it honestly just felt sensitive to the touch. It felt like it was a little bit burny, I want to say. I don't know how to explain it, but it did not feel good. Like touching it was a little bit painful almost. So there were a lot of rules I had to follow while I was on Accutane, and they were all super important, so I want to share them with you. If you are considering Accutane, these are the things that you're going to have to do. The first thing is that you absolutely cannot get pregnant. Accutane is a drug that can really affect the fetus. It can cause a lot of deformities. It can cause miscarriages. It's just, you absolutely cannot get pregnant. And that's why, for example, in the US, it's mandatory to take 2 forms of birth control. Here, they highly and strongly recommend that you take 2 forms of birth control. It's just out of the question. So the second thing is that you will not be able to drink at all while you're on Accutane. Yes, believe me, 20-year-old me was devastated when I heard this. I actually remember when my dermatologist told me that, I was like, at all? I can't, not at all. Trust me, it's worth it. Hang in there. It's not a big deal. It's gonna be over in just a couple months. So worth it. So basically, alcohol is out of the picture for the months that you are on Accutane. Another big one is sun exposure. So while I was on Accutane, every single day I was applying sunscreen. I wasn't just applying it, I was slathering it on. First of all, I could feel how fragile my skin felt at that time. It was dry, it was flaking, it was hurting, it was awful. So the last thing I'd want to do is expose it to the sun. That could be really, really damaging. So what you're going to want to do is get yourself a really, really good SPF, a very gentle one, something that is very basic but has a high SPF in it. And you're going to want to apply that every single day, whether it's rain or shine or snow or hail. Just apply your SPF every day. Another thing is that you cannot take vitamin A supplements while you're on Accutane. As I mentioned, Accutane is a form of vitamin A, and an overload of vitamin A can be very, very problematic, so you are not allowed to take any vitamin A supplements. So finally, I'll tell you about the skincare routine that I was following while I was on Accutane. As I mentioned, my skin was dry, very sensitive, and I already told you I was applying an SPF, I think it was about 30 or 40 every single day religiously. Because my skin was so dry, I was applying moisturizer also day and night, and I was washing my face day and night. While you're on Accutane, you will not be able to use any sort of acne products. So that means retinol creams, vitamin C serums, none of it. You won't be able to use any of. From my experience, most dermatologists are going to prescribe Cetaphil. Cetaphil is like the most basic cleanser moisturizer combo you could ever find. I found it was fine for me. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it works. It serves the purpose. It's a very gentle and fragrance-free line. It's perfect for when you're on Accutane and you just want to keep things really simple. You want everything to be super gentle on your skin. So likely you're going to be using Cetaphil to cleanse, and that of course is the basic one. Nothing with salicylic acid, nothing with anything in it, the absolute most basic. Now, even if it is from Cetaphil or CeraVe or Spectro or any of those very basic brands, you're definitely going to want to have a very moisturizing night cream. Because you're going to be so dry, it's going to be really beneficial to use a thick moisturizing night cream at night, and that's exactly what I did. I had a night cream, I had a very light day cream by Cetaphil, I had the Cetaphil SPF moisturizer, and I had the regular Cetaphil cleanser. Aside from that, I wasn't really using anything. The only other thing I had always on me was a lip balm or a Vaseline because my lips were constantly dry, so I always had something like that in my bag. And other than that, I was drinking loads and loads of water because you will feel so parched. Actually, that's another thing. With Accutane, it's very drying in every single way. Dry eyes, dry lips, dry skin, and you will feel thirsty likely. I know I did. So I was drinking loads of water. Even after you're done with Accutane, you're probably going to be continuing this specific skin routine for about a month. I know the dryness for me lasted even after I was done with Accutane for at least 2 or 3 weeks. And I know that sensitive feeling really lasted as well for at least 2 weeks. So I just continued using the same regime. You're not gonna wanna switch right back to vitamin C serums, and you're not going to wanna go back to your regular regime, especially if it includes any sort of abrasive treatments like peels or toners or anything like that. You're going to wanna stick with your basic routine for some time longer, especially until the dryness and that sensitive feeling goes away. Your dermatologist will probably be able to tell you when it's right for you to go back to using your old products. I can't remember if I already mentioned this, but I will mention it now. Accutane is good for most types of acne. The one where you run into problems is when you have hormonal acne. Now, my breakouts tend to be hormonal. At that time, they weren't. I went through a total skincare crisis at that time, and that's why I had broken out so badly. I can definitely go into more detail about that, but my breakouts typically are hormonal, and that is not something that Accutane can control. Not to say that it hasn't helped me. Definitely, I can say now that it's 7 years later, my skin is not nearly as oily as it used to be. In fact, it's a little bit on the dry-ish side. That's something to consider. If you're not super oily, Accutane is going to leave you drier than you currently are. So I was medium oily, and now I'm a little bit on the dry side. Some people experience that their pores look smaller. I'm going to say I absolutely agree with that. Mine definitely did after I finished Accutane, which is kind of nice. I'm not complaining about that at all. And just overall, I have not experienced breakouts like I used to at all since I've taken Accutane, except for when it's hormonal, in which Accutane doesn't have much of a role. Or of course, if I've had a reaction to a product, which has happened to me several times, it has caused me to break out again. It's not something that Accutane can control. But overall, what I have experienced is that my skin is definitely drier, my pores are smaller, I don't get oily, and the regular breakouts that used to just keep happening all the time because my skin was oily or for whatever other reason, that doesn't happen anymore at all. All I say is at the end of the day, do your research, decide if this is right for you, know all your options before you make a decision, and of course just talk to a professional. They can really look at your skin and assess you and assess your needs based on your lifestyle and your skin type and all of those factors. I mean, it's a whole big picture. You are unique, you're complex, and you need someone who knows skin and knows what options are available to prescribe the right option for you. Overall, for me, it was a really good experience. Of course, all the side effects and that whole process was not fun at all, but in the end, the results were so worth it for me. Okay, so as promised, here are the pictures that I've been dreading to show, but here they are. I hope they help you, and if they do, please give this video a thumbs up, and thanks so much for watching.